Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo. On this episode, we review the state of the nation with the foremost former diplomats and author. I also have on standby an associate editor of one of Nigeria's leading newspapers who would also give us his take on some national issues. Of course, my colleague Elizabeth Omoru is here with me as usual. Elizabeth, I trust you're good and set for us.
Of course. Well, on the media review segment this week, we shall be revisiting the issue of fake news. Well, when fake news is sensationalized, what happens? And I'll be chatting with a very strong player in the world of media.
Very well, then let's get started with our discussion on the state of the nation. Former career diplomat, retired federal permanent secretary and author of several books, Ambassador Godnose Igali. Welcome to Insight.
Thank you very much.
I know you have provided leadership in various forms over the last 3 decades, that's about 30 years now, whether in international diplomacy or even in the academia and of course as well as politics. Perhaps we should start off by talking leadership and governance and how one influences the other in public service. How do you rationalize good and purposeful leadership, and how could that easily fast-track good governance?
Well, the foundation of society is on the basis of what many people have come to accept as a social contract. Social contract meaning that the governed, without involuntarily, acquiesce their freedom to the state, and by implication the government in the state, to saying that we live together in a society for a common good, so we don't live in a state of nature. So the idea of governance, the idea of society is built to cater for the people, for the good of the people. If not, we can go back to a brutish, the words of the social contract theorist, state of nature, where it is the strongest that it takes, or the fittest that becomes the king. But we decided to live together in a society for the common good. So everybody can be happy, the weak can be strengthened by the stronger, and those who don't have can share from the abundance of those who have. So that's the whole idea of society. And governments and governance structures are built in society to cater for the maximum welfare of as many people as possible, for the common good of all. So without sounding too academic, societies exist for the purpose of catering for their people. And the foundation of the state, the foundation of the society, is the common good for as many people as possible. As many persons in the society must be carried along, if I'm to simplify it in the Nigerian parlance, as to carry it along. So good governance must be predicated on ensuring that the society protects everybody, and that's the government. It's the government's duty to ensure society protects everybody, and that brings the concept of rule of law, where nobody is above the law. The law has to make sure that everybody is on same level playing field. And that's why people say the Scandinavian countries, where I was once privileged to have been an ambassador, that they have some of the best governance systems, because nobody is above the law. Everybody is equal when it comes to the law. And I remember in Denmark, there was a case where a minister drove an official car to attend an event out of town using government fuel, government car. He came back and he was forced to resign. They said, no, you couldn't have done that. It was a private thing. So nobody is above the law. That society protects everybody. But society, again, also provides a safety net for everybody.
Okay.
So that safety net caters for all. So nobody is too poor and nobody is terribly, terribly so rich. And then the poor is left at the marginal fringes of existence, of human existence. So good governance must be predicated on the fact that society caters for all, and society protects everybody.
And what role does good leadership or purposeful leadership play in all of this?
Purposeful leadership is just a matter of balance. Purposeful leadership is the idea of those who are vested with that responsibility of leading, being able to ensure that the society caters not for themselves, not for their group of people, not for those who appear to look like them, not for those who come from where they come from, who eat what they eat, and who pray the way they pray. But that the society, the leadership ensures that the society provides the best for everybody. So purposeful leadership or good leadership is a leadership that is accountable to the people. Yes, by the end of the day, you put us there. We report back to you. And our duty is to protect you. Our duty is to provide for you. You see, it again comes back to the whole idea of the social contract. Whether we accept it or not, because there are people who believe there is no social contract, they let the strongest have the day. Or there are those who believe that society must be so communalistic that production is defined under proletarian terms. But
we will be coming to ideology and some of these issues.
The whole idea is that good leadership is to ensure that when you lead, you serve the people. Maybe what late President Yaradua said, some kind of servant leadership as it were. You lead to serve. And if you look at the two main religions in Nigeria, both Christianity and Islam, our religious fathers, our religious, those through whom we serve our God, taught us on the fact of leadership, serving. Jesus said, look, that the leader should wash the feet of his servants. And said the Prophet Muhammad sat on the floor with those who were with him and nobody knew who he was. So the leadership we need in Nigeria is a leadership that serves the people, that protects the people, and provides for the people.
Dr. Egali, you're not just a good orator, I should say. You're known to be a good writer as well. In fact, I came across a piece you wrote and delivered at an event in Bayelsa State in 2017 to mark the Isaac Borough Day. You talked about the imperatives for moving from underdevelopment and marginalization to rapid development in the Niger Delta. But I am more interested in what you described as the Nigerian reality. I'll quote from your speech where you said, and I quote, I would ask them to just put that up so we can see if we have that now, and I'll quote, in recent times, the unfolding socio-political environment in Nigeria characterized by unbridled intolerance, religious extremism, pervasive violence, high-level corruption, ethnic chauvinism, and irredentist proclivities has tended to make Nigerians to begin to recline into cocoons of self-expressions and creations of spheres of self and group preservation, end of quote. This rings true on many levels and continues to be an issue for us in Nigeria. But again, I'll talk about leadership and ask you this. How can leadership steer us away from all of these misconceptions and perhaps stir up nationalism?
Well, leadership in a multi-ethnic society such as Nigeria must be very broad-minded in order to accommodate and ensure that the interests of all sections are balanced evenly. It's not possible to have a perfect balance, but we can have a fair and even balance that will ensure that no group feels terribly alienated and excluded. And so what leadership needs to do is to ensure, like fortunately, Chapter 3 of the present Constitution and all the previous constitutions that deals with the fundamental objectives of state policy and derivative policies provides the fact that leadership must accommodate everybody. That is, if you're a local government chairman, all components of your local government must feel the impact of your leadership. And you have to be fair to everybody in the local government in allocation of resources, which are scarce. If the same thing at this level of the state, no part of the state, no section of the state should feel excluded. They must feel the impact of the government. And then at the federal level, in fact, the constitution is very hard at the federal level in terms of the fact that the federal government it says that the federal government must be run in a way that takes care of everybody, and the economic and social benefits must ensure that all parts of the country benefit. So the leadership has what Professor George Obiozor called precarious balancing. You know, you have to balance precariously the interest of all parts and ensure that everybody feels the warmth. It's like a parent, you know, a mother, that all the children want to feel the warmth of the mother. So a good leader in the kind of society we have, and those who are placed to lead, have to ensure that everybody feels the impact of the leadership.
Dr. Gali, let me ask you a pointed question on politics and politicking in Nigeria. Okay. Do you concur or disagree with those who believe quite strongly too that politics and politicking, especially when it comes as a practice for determining resource allocation within a polity, has largely impacted negatively on public administration in Nigeria? Take the state and local government administration, for instance.
Well, I think sometimes, it's a point where I disagree with a lot of people in terms of the fact that who do we blame for the failures of governance in Nigeria or for the successes of governance? If you put on the television, you see governors advertising what they've done most of the time. But the point there is that there are three levels of government. There's a federal government that gets an allocation of resources, although it's a far departure from the original arrangement. Then there's the states, there are the states and the local governments. And many times, I have been secretary to a state government before. When President Jonathan was governor, I was secretary of the state government. And all what you hear, you know, in government circles is, okay, they try you. We are loyal. You are doing very well. You know, we don't interrogate performance at the level of the states. We don't interrogate performance like Minister of Health. There was a governor that came to Abuja once, he's a former governor now, and said, the federal government does not have any good hospitals. And I laughed. I said, but health is on the concurrent list, which means state governments have to provide health facilities and federal government. This COVID-19 has exposed a lot of state governments. COVID-19 has shown a lot of state governments don't have anything on ground. So many states now have molecular labs, but some states don't even have good isolation centers or water supply. Look at India. Somebody went to court to sue the local government chairman because that section dealing with fundamental objectives is justiciable in India. You can take somebody to court. And the local government was taken to court for not providing water or providing educational facilities for children. And the judge said that local government chairman should be jailed. So the point there is that we don't interrogate performance at the level of municipal, local governments. Go to UK, England, or in the United States that Nigerians always quote. You know, housing is not done by the central government. Water, electricity, not electricity, water, housing, schools are provided at the municipal level. But here, local governments are not interrogated. We don't go into action and ask them to come and give account. So I think that the starting point for most of us in the country, for us to query performance, should be from the very basic level. What is happening at the local level, what is happening at the state levels, and what's happening at the federal level.
Can we also tie that to resource control at that level? Can we?
Resource control is a different kettle of fish. If you ask me a question on resource control, I can spend the whole day talking about resource control. Because it's at my heart. I'm from the Niger Delta. Listen to me, my local government, Southern Niger local government, produces about 18% of this country, of the oil and the wealth, and we don't have any road going to my local government. If you visit me, we have to go by water for 2 hours to get to my community. So resource control, went from the Ibadan Conference of 1950 up to the independent conference, up to the independent constitution. The people discussed, the leaders, the founding fathers of this country, the great people like Sardauna of Sokoto, the great Zik of Africa, Chief Awolowo and co discussed how do I allocate resources, and they agreed that the resources should be such that 50% goes to the area that produces the resources.
Okay.
30% goes to the distributive pool to be shared again by everybody, all the regions. Then 20% goes to the federal government. From 1966 coup, when the 1960 constitution was pushed aside, they now said, oh, everything should be centralized. And today, we from Niger Delta, we are producing the oil, suffering from the brunt of oil production. We get 13%, and people think that they are being fair to us. And the environment is polluted. We can't fish again. We're fishermen. We can't fish again because all the fish has run away from our areas and gone up in the River Niger. So the point, resource control is something that we have to keep discussing, and haven't departed fundamentally from what the founding fathers agreed. There must be a forum where we look at this subject matter again.
Indeed,
that's why our youth got restive, and we have to tell them to take it easy.
We would also create a forum where you and I can talk about resource control, and we can have a longer time to do that. Well, Ambassador Igali,
yes.
you are currently, and I'm bringing these up right now because I do know you've been in the thick of politics in Bayelsa State. In fact, you were a governorship aspirant in the 2019 Guba polls there. I also do know of your senatorial ambition. Please permit me to be blunt here and ask you, is this an attempt? I mean, is this an attempt to hold political office, not minding which, or perhaps you're driven by something else you would like to share with us?
No. I think that, I joined public service at a very early age. I joined civil service at the age of 22. And I had a very successful career that took me to the peak of diplomacy and the peak of administration. I became one of the
You're somewhat of a guru in public administration.
I became one of the most senior administration permanent secretaries in the country before I exited. And I think that I'm still strong enough to contribute and to give I've worked for federal government all these years. So I thought I could still give back to my people. That's why I tried to be governor, but I didn't understand some of the nuances of politics in Nigeria, and I went into governorship election, and I saw that it's not about ideas for a lot of people. It's not about ideas. Unfortunately, it's not about ideas. It's about maybe the depth of your pocket. Anyway, that's another matter. But senatorial ambition, do I have one? Well, my people keep shouting very loud that, come back, come and be our senator, come and be our senator. I'm listening to them, and I'm praying about it. That's what I can say.
I would later on, just before I let you go, ask you quite a delicate question on your ambition, but I'll leave that for now, Antari, and I'll keep it just at the tail end of our discussion. But I'll still stay with politics, but this time I would like to have your take on the seeming lack of ideology in Nigerian political parties. Does a blueprint suffice as ideology even when they are not fixated on any of the prominent political ideologies like we see in other climes?
Well, I think there is a fundamental problem in the way we are playing politics at present. If you go back to the First Republic, and I keep talking about the First Republic because that is where the foundation of this country was laid. The Northern People's Congress was a center party conservative party, something similar to the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom. And Malam Aminu Kano left to form Northern Element Progressive Unit based on ideology. Okay. He was radical. If you come down to the south, Chief Awolowo preached and practiced some social welfare type of governance, something similar to the Scandinavian countries, free education, free housing, support agriculture. And a person like Akintola was slightly more to the right. You know, Akintola parted ways with Chief Awolowo based on ideology. Parted because he was more similar to what the Northern People Congress was doing, and he joined them. If you go to the east, at a point, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe wanted, independence now or never. And a person like Professor Eyoeta, who was his friend and holding the fort in the Eastern House, parted ways with him. essentially based on ideology. So ideology is a fundamental part of politics. Now, let me come forward to today. We have two main parties in the country. And I don't even want to go to Second Republic. Yes, the same thing. Chihuahua came with Action Group, social center left, NPN, center right. Then in between NEPU of Aminu Kano, which was not, sorry, PRP, sorry, PRP was again extreme left. And so we had all this. Then you had the one that Professor Wole Soyinka, Dr. Tunji Braithwaite, and Fela and co formed, which was more of a radical advocacy kind of thing, ideology. Now, President Babangida tried to do two parties, NRC, SDF, it failed. Today, we don't know where ideology is in our parties. We don't know where ideology is. And ideology is a critical thing in parties. You know, we have the two parties are now all more or less two concentric circles with a big common area. The common area is so big that you don't know if there's a difference. So I think that we need to return to ideology. We need to return to the functionality of the power of the party. Those who are old enough to remember, in the days of NPN, I was in the University of Port Harcourt. I was secretary of NPN student wing in Rivers State. And I remember when Akinloye was visiting the state as chairman of NPN. It was more than when the president visited the state. That was the strength of the party. The party was so strong. And the same thing, Adenara Ogunsoya, who was chairman of NPP, the Zikis party at the time, the Second Republic. He was so powerful that again, because in the River State House of Assembly, we were equal, almost equal, NPN and NPP. When Adenara Ogunsoya was coming, our colleagues who were supporting NPP, it was like the president visiting the state. So I think today, party chairman, anybody can say, come out. No. We have to return to a place where the party is able to dictate its ideology, and there will be irreducible standards. This is what we want in education. This is what we want in health. This is what we want in maybe infant mortality or whatever. But so ideology has
to be the motivation and guiding.
Very opaque. The opaqueness of ideology is affecting.
I would interject. I would interject here, Ambassador, and so we can move on quickly. We're fast losing time. I'd like for us to go to other issues now, and let's talk about the National Response Plan on COVID-19. We're seeing the numbers of we're seeing the number of infections rise steadily, while the government unveils more plans to contain the spread. As we gradually reopen the economy, if I ask you, to make recommendations, what stimulus packages would you recommend for businesses, and perhaps what group or groups of businesses should be targeted for bailout at this point?
Well, of necessity, first and foremost, let me commend the actions taken so far. The Presidential Task Force has done creditably very well. You benchmark them with other countries, and I was invited recently on Africa Day to talk on the African response. Okay. And if you benchmark us with other African countries, we are doing quite well. And unfortunately, because of demographic issues, our numbers are very high. So naturally, expectedly, we've even done well. Look at Brazil. We are the country that is about same level with us is Brazil in terms of demographics and size is Brazil, and the numbers in Brazil are taking a quantum leap, you know, and so we've tried well, but there's need for more advocacy. Okay. Need for more advocacy, not by only the federal government, but the states, local government. We have to advocate more. People have to be more aware on the street.
Do you think the part of
what's important? But people first have to know that COVID-19 is a reality. People have to, as they say, true. I went somewhere and I was the only person wearing a mask. Now testing in terms of because they are But again, back same road.
Last week, I had some migration experts come on the program. They came on Insight, and we discussed the growing sense of loss and isolation occasioned by the prolonged closure of borders between countries. We do know that some countries are creating what has been termed mobility bubbles. I mean, otherwise known as safe zones, invariably asking other nationals, to stay away. What are your thoughts on these developments and how such a move could further drive the world apart? Very quickly, Dr. Igali.
I recently wrote an article on this pandemic, and I was impressed. It went around globally. It is a natural factor. Nature, everybody wants to preserve himself. The law of self-preservation is regarded as the first human instinct. So now it is a time for everybody to answer, as it is locally said, his father's name. Every country is protectionist. Every country will cooperate with you on the phone and through the virtual media, but they want to protect themselves because this is a virus that is spread by human contact. So the bubbles will exist, but what do you want people to do? Every nation wants to survive. Even within the nation, state governors have put barricades on federal roads. Federal roads that connect to states. A federal road that belongs to the federal government, they say, well, we don't care. We can go for the penalty later. We put a barricade because the nature everybody wants to be preserved. So there's nothing you can do. It's a natural instinct. It's a human reaction. As COVID-19 begins to fade away, hopefully there's a discovery of a vaccine or some treatment somewhere, I think those bubbles will burst and life will return back to as close as possible what it used to be.
There's so much we have to talk about that I would really love for us to talk about. There's the issue of security. But I'll just try to make this quick and condense all of my questions into one or two. Let me just ask you this, Dr. Igali. Give me very quickly, if you're to choose, just give me 5 critical sectors in Nigeria that you like to see government take a radical, pardon me to use the word, a radical action on, as a way of fast-tracking sustainable development in Nigeria. Very quickly.
Well, the first sector is power.
Power.
I used to be in power, and I think that some things need to be done that were being done. There's need for the sector to be more supervised. We used to have what we call Presidential Task Force on Power, PTFP. PTFP was a daily engine room where all actors would meet and monitor what has been happening. And that helped a lot. Later it was scrapped. I think that the scrapping of PTFP should be reconsidered so that the burden is taken away from many people. And that is,
you mentioned power. Can we go to 2 quickly? Because we don't have time.
Power is very important.
Okay,
the other one is what we've spoken about before, dealing with the lowest levels of the economic superstructure.
Okay.
The informal people who are informal, to bring as many of them into the formal sector, and to try to help them.
Okay.
Because when you help them, you are helping more people.
And then
In fact, they have more people. Number three is the issue of youth unemployment.
Youth unemployment.
We have to give jobs to our young people. We have to give jobs to our young people, and it has to be something that both private sector, the states and the federal government shouldn't be done with lip service, have to continue to play their role. Number 4 is agriculture. Agriculture is so critical. I'm not listing them in any order of
I get that.
Agriculture is so important, and there is so much. In terms of hydrology, that's in terms of water supply and the climate, Nigeria offers some of the best opportunities for agriculture. So I think that we need to do something. Yes.
And then 5?
5 is Niger Delta.
Okay.
Niger Delta, because Niger Delta produces the oil of this country. Niger Delta is the one that keeps this country going. And to imagine that East-West Road, which is where this oil comes from, it's not East-West Road will cost just about 3 to 4 days of oil production. But East-West Road has not been done. So as long as Niger Delta is not solved and even whether there's amnesty program on, there needs to be more focus and concentration on solving the problems of the Niger Delta. Well, insecurity is always there. I now add a sixth one.
Sixth.
Yes, I have a sixth one. Insecurity is there. We have to address insecurity.
Indeed.
So, yeah, these are some critical sectors.
I'll take your six. I'll take your six.
Thank you.
But before I let you go, and I'll say this with all sense of honesty, I mean, if and when you do decide on your ambition, or senatorial ambition, I mean, of course, the National Assembly can use more people like you. But then some people have criticized the obvious harmonious relationship between the country's legislature and the executive, pointing out that it makes caricature of the principles of checks and balances. Can I get your thoughts on this very quickly in less than 15 seconds?
First, I don't have an ambition. Is the wish of my people. No, my
I
people,
said if and when you do decide.
My people have been crying loud.
Okay.
Come. So let's put that aside. Now, talking about the harmony between executive and the legislature.
And now it makes caricature.
I think you are making a mistake. There is the feeling. There's bellicosity and animosity.
Yeah, it's a perception.
There is the perception that animosity in governance is a critical factor. No. There's what is called consensual governance. Okay. Governance can be run in such a way that people negotiate, people talk, people agree. And personally, as a diplomat, I've always believed in talk instead of war. Jaw. So war. Governance can be such that state governments and federal governments can agree. A National Assembly and the legislature and the executive can have a modus vivendi, talking and agreeing on issues, and so that does not mean that anybody is a licky to the other. And I think that
Ambassador, you don't think the perception is a problem or a challenge?
See that students of political science will agree with me that the idea of one of the concepts of political governance is consensual governance. And that's what happens in communist countries. My first diplomatic post in 1982 was in a communist country. And before they come to do things, they've sat down, the leadership, they will agree on the main things, argue. By the time they come to the public, they will be telling the public this is what we have agreed.
I think this is one of the issues we would also move.
There's nothing that is wrong.
I would take this for now, but I can promise you, Ambassador Igali, that you will be back here and we will take up this discourse again. I want to thank you so much for coming, former career diplomat, retired Federal Permanent Secretary, and author of, I was only able to see 3 of your books, but I do understand you have about 6 published books, if I'm not mistaken. Ambassador God knows Igali, it's been a pleasure having you on Insights. Well, like when you do make your decision on the senatorial election in Bayelsa State, please let us know and we will be there to cover. Thank you again for coming on Insights.
Thank you very much.
My next guest is a columnist and an associate editor with the Nation newspaper, Olukorede Yishua. I should also mention that he's also a published author. His book, In the Name of Our Father, has been getting lots of great reviews. Korede, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nnamdi. Thank you for having me.
I figure we could easily pick up from where I left off with Dr. Godknows Igali and get your perspective on the leadership question. I read your last piece on your column that you titled The Trouble Still with Nigeria, and you raised several important issues bordering citizenship, ethnicity. You seem to very clearly posit that all of these shouldn't take center stage in determining how leaders emerge in Nigeria. Put that in broader perspective, I beg your pardon, for our viewer.
Okay, well, I would like to start this way. Some years back, I used to work with Tel Magazine, and there was a lady, a white lady, who came for an internship with us. And one day we were having a discussion, and she told me she's Canadian and her parents are Briton. And I was like, what do you mean? You should be from where your parents are. That's how it works in Nigeria. If your father is from Ekwe, that means you are from Ekwe, and that means you are from Lagos State. She said no, that she was born in Canada and she's Canadian, and her parents were Briton. And I was like, what's the meaning of this? Well, so she took time to educate me. But in their own society, where your parents are from, has absolutely nothing to do with your own citizenship. It is where you are born that is considered as where you are. So what should matter really is what can you offer. Where you are from really shouldn't mean anything. And if for whatever reason, okay, maybe because we're a multicultural society and we want everybody to have a sense of belonging, I believe that in picking people based on whether federal character or quota system or whatever, we should pick the best from the area we're trying to give proper representation. It shouldn't be about just the quota system of federal character. What should matter is, okay, this person we're given this job, can this person do the job? Okay. If the person can't do the job, then we shouldn't give jobs to people who can't do the job. Yes, we're a multicultural society. We need to be sensitive to the feeling of everybody so that we can all feel part of the system. But in doing that, what should matter most should be this person we're giving this job. Can the person do it? If the person cannot do it, then we should look for somebody in the area who can do the job. If you can't do the job, then you shouldn't get the job. That's my take.
Okay. I hear you, Korede. As a prelude to our interview, I read a bit of your book, In the Name of Our Father, which is apparently a satire. It talks about the politics of the June 12, 1993 election. I'm not going to dwell on the details of it, but rather I'll speak on the technique, or rather ask you a question on the technique of using very delicate genre of literature to depict realism. How impactful can a satire be in terms of challenging people's viewpoint on issues of national interest?
Well, the truth is that when people read things, whether fiction or non-fiction, they take one message or the other away from reading. And when people now read a work of fiction, and in reading it, they can sense that this is not just an ordinary work of fiction. There are hidden messages. Like when a colleague read the book, she told me that she considers it a book of codes. That for you to really understand the book, you need to be able to decode the messages. And one thing I've been happy about in the last 2 years that the book has been out is that so many people, especially Nigerians, were able to decode the messages inherent in the book. And once you are able to decode the messages in the book, you can put it into use, really. And when you put it into use, our country will be better for it. And largely, I've seen people who have read the book who have said, this is a book that should be read by politicians. And that it's a book that actually preaches against military governments. It's a book that says that no matter how bad our democracy is, it is better than the best of military rule.
Well, Korede, that is for your book now, but I noticed that in your column as well, you apply the same technique of using satire on issues.
Why I do that a lot of time is because when people read too serious stuff somehow, or when they read things that make them laugh, while laughing, they will also notice that there is actually a message this person is passing across. It's just trying to get us to be soaked in while also passing a message. And I've seen a lot of people read and they get the message. And interestingly, when I won the Columnist of the Year at the Nigerian Media Merit Awards some years back, it was actually one of my satiric pieces that won the prize. And my intention in using satire is to draw you in, and in drawing you in, I'm able to pass my messages across to you better than just using straight fictional technique or non-fictional techniques. So the idea behind that is get you to be drawn in with my hyperbolic use of words. And once I do that, my message is passed across. You think that I'm joking, but while doing that, I'm throwing my messages at you, and somehow they stick. And over time, I've seen that people, when I do pieces like that, I get a lot of people either calling me or sending me messages, or when they see me, they tell me that we enjoyed that piece. And funny enough, when I won the Nigerian Media Merit Award some years back, it was actually one of those satiric pieces that I did when I first started my column, known in the nation as Above Whispers.
Okay.
So generally, satiric pieces draw people in, and the message is easily passed across. So that's why I use the technique a lot of the time.
Korede, you write a lot about leadership and governance, social and economic matters as well, even religion and the arts. I mean, just about every subject that has national appeal. Where do you draw inspiration from, and what determines the direction your column will take each week?
Well, the truth is that there's actually no particular. I don't have what do you call it? A set rule about what I will write next. No set rule really. The inspiration may come from the social media. It may come from a book I've read. It may also come from the fact that I've seen a video about somebody. Then some days back, the person dies, and I find it difficult to reconcile a lot of things about what I've seen, and I just decided, okay, let me put my thoughts together about this as my column for the week.
Let me ask you this, Korede. How does it feel staying in your space, okay, and analyzing social, political, and national issues from your perspective? Do you get a sense of being, powerful, knowing that millions are waiting each week to read what you have to say on these issues?
I initially, when I started doing a column, I didn't take myself too seriously. Then over time, I discovered that people actually take me serious, so
Okay.
I started taking myself also serious. And because of all of that, and the fact that just 1 year after I started writing a column, I won the Nigerian Media Merit Award as columnist of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I started taking myself more seriously. Then when I write, I also feel a sense of responsibility. I shouldn't just write any kind of nonsense. I should write truthfully.
Okay.
I should only write things my conscience can defend. If I do not feel strongly about any matter, I don't write about it. There are instances where I've started my column, and somehow I feel that this is not me, and I abandoned it and start something else all over again. So, yes, the fact that I know that, a lot of people will read the column has made me feel that I should be extremely responsible in treating whatever issues I decide to treat.
Of course, you deserve all of the accolades you've been getting. I've known you for a couple of years now. We've covered stories together over the years, and we've worked together. But just before I let you go, Korede, let me get your thoughts on literary appreciation in Nigeria. Generally, of course, seeing as you are a novelist. Are writers getting better appreciation for their works? And do you think Nigerians are reading more?
Well, let me start from the aspect about whether Nigerians are reading more. I think a lot of Nigerians, especially the young ones, they actually read, but the challenge is that when you sell a book for 3,000, 5,000 naira, they may not be able to afford to buy the book. But when you make the book available to them, they actually read.
Okay, I'd also ask them, Korede, if you think writers are getting their due recognition. Would you like to quickly comment on that?
The truth notice that in Nigeria, I don't think so. I really don't think so. Most writers who get the kind of appreciation they deserve for their work are people who are actually published abroad. That's where you see that, okay, they are paid royalty, they are paid. Some even get upfront payments for books that have actually not been published, but we don't have that kind of system in Nigeria. The publishing industry is actually, as far as I'm concerned, is struggling.
We hope the times will get better. Korede, I know you have a new book coming soon. It's titled Vaults of Secrets. I'm anxious to read that as well, so I hope it gets to the stores before the end of the year. When is the likely release date?
No, it's actually coming out on Independence Day.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. I want to thank you very much for coming on Insight. Olukorede Ishmael, he's an author, he's a columnist and associate editor with the Nation's newspaper. Again, thank you very much indeed for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, Nandi. Thank you. Thank
you. Elizabeth Omorui is up next with the Media Review segment.
Thanks for joining us on the Media Review segment this week. Fake news is a form of news consisting of deliberate disinformation spread via traditional news media. However, digital news has brought back and increased the usage of fake news. How do we cop this trend? Yinka Aderibigbe, a senior editor with the Nation newspaper, will give us insight via the telephone. Mr. Aderibigbe, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's
All
nice
right.
being on the program with you.
Thank you so much. Reducing the spread of misinformation, especially on social media, is a major challenge. But with the mainstream media being involved, how far will journalism go?
Well, like you said, there is a difference between news media and social media. Social media is just what it is, an agglomeration of words that are created for social interactions, while news media are populated by professionals in the industry of news production. They are different environments, and they should not be mixed together. You cannot, if you desire to be fed with accurate news, you cannot use your ports on social media.
Okay.
The best is for you to go to the news media, and most of the traditional news media platforms graciously today are also on the website. You can log on to their website and get accurate information about whatever field, whatever endeavor, whatever news that you require. Anyone that decides to use social media as a peg for his news is just not looking for news. He's just looking for entertainment. He's just looking for distractions.
Mr. Aderibigbe, do you think fake news is being sensationalized by the mainstream media?
It will be hard for me to, as a professional, to see mainstream media as purveyors of fake news, because it is always in cases that are extraneous that you find them missing the targets, and you can really mention those issues. It is not as widespread as you have in social media. Like I said, social media is just for entertainment. It's just for citizen reportage.
Okay.
You're putting yourself and your family and whatever you do every day on the media platform, which were created for entertainment purposes. Those platforms were never created as a means of gathering or as a means of sifting or as a means of collecting news. No, they are cannot. If you want to be fed with news as it is breaking in Nigeria or elsewhere in the world, go to the traditional media platforms. That is where you get accurate news.
Okay, you are a media practitioner. How can fake news be curbed?
Fake news will continue to be with us. Why did I say that? Because it is citizen propelled. It is social propelled. It is community propelled. We all live in communities. We all live in places. We all want to project ourselves in the eye of the people. So we have Facebook. So we have Instagram. So we have Twitter. For as much as those platforms are there, there will be people that will want to say that some things must be posted. Like where I live, for instance, there are cases where people have deliberately posted that they have been kidnapped or that they know somebody who is in distress. And all of us will rush there because we are a closed circuit community. We will rush there only to discover that it was just fake. You see, the thing is this. People will deliberately want to, because of who we are, because human beings are naturally social animals, they are complex creatures. They will always want to create things. They will always want to excite themselves. They will always want to entertain themselves, you know. And so there would always be situations where there will be need for things that we call fake news. But of course, as practitioners, we know where to source news. We know where to look for news. Those who are in the business, you know, whose businesses are really tied to getting information, whether as contractors or whatever, they will not go to social media to look for news about the states they want to have businesses with. They look for traditional media platforms. They look for official gazettes of the government, which are given to traditional media platforms too. So you always have fake news with us because it is social propelled, because it is individual propelled, but all of these individuals are trained in the art of news production, in the art of putting the news out there for the people. There's nothing we can do about that. We are 200 million people. We must make projections, and that is why we have the laws. The laws are available to curb excesses. You understand?
Yes.
Those excesses must be curbed, can be curbed, and will continue to be curbed as they continue to emerge. Yes.
Do you think regulation of content will help solve this issue?
Largely, yes.
Okay.
Because a lot of the time what you discover is that a parent will buy phone for his or her child, barely leaving school, will start posting content on their platforms. There must be regulation. We also have these regulations. You see, ignorance of the law is not an excuse anywhere.
Of course.
If you want of the law,
Did you get to see the way Daily Babadu pulls this?
Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue.
Actually cool.
بأيديكم إلى التهلكة. That is it. Can do more with less people.
If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of...
Congratulations, you were able to sign Timo Werner from RB Leipzig.
So you take water before your workout.
People have used their phone, using TikTok to do this.
Should I go for test?
A lot of people don't even have resources.